Well, welcome back. This is Deborah Tavares with StopTheCrime.net. The hour prior, I was talking about water. I will be launching into some other unthinkable plots that are already set up in this country and worldwide. But in a few final words about water and also the heating events that we've suffered through and will increase as the weapon systems continue to expand upon us. The front page of my paper today, being Tuesday, July the 27th of 2021, says that drought measures, officials to suspend water rights for diverters of water in the Russian River watershed area in order to slow falling levels in Lake Mendocino. Now, something extremely misleading, and you need to understand, most lakes are reservoirs. They're man-made. You have to check that out. When you think you have a lake or you're near a lake, you could be by a reservoir. You need to know if it is a lake or a man-made reservoir. They are weapons. At this moment, they're being used for the illusion of running out of water. When we have a massive rain event, which they call atmospheric rivers, they will trounce water on these reservoirs, which creates instability with the sudden increased load on the geological materials underneath and causes earthquakes. I've done many talks about this entire fake water delivery system that we've been put on, sadly. The only water system that we should have been on is the one that NATO and the United States blew up in 2011 in Libya. Muammar Gaddafi constructed what was called the Great Man-Made River Project, served over 6 million people in Libya with pure, fresh drinking water, not adulterated with atmospheric pollutions such as bomb testing, chemtrailing poisons, flowing over poisonous lands with fertilizers that are deadly into these cauldrons of reservoirs that we call our municipal water supply, only then to be added by fluoride, most likely, in many areas, as well as now upstream blending of your poop and urine. In many areas that's occurring as well. It's called a blend. But now they're going to be more direct about it, as we're going to learn. But so they're going to take action. They're going to prevent people from pumping, again, $1,000 a day fines, and they're really creating the visual pictorial of running out of water. Don't fall for this. This is mind control. If you believe we're running out of water, then you are already subdued, either by fluoride or mind control. We are the water planet. We are not running out of water. And I will tell you, I do not understand why more people are not talking about this. Please become the more people to share this vital requirement of water. Because without water, we die. Without water, our cities dry up. Water is the driver of the world. It's the driver of our environment, of our homes, of our cities, of the present time that we live in, and the future that we will live in. Water drives all life. And without understanding the truth about water, we are going to be served up wastewater. And we have been promised that because Veolia, V-E-O-L-I-A, is a massive corporation that has seeded itself by building thousands of wastewater treatment plants all over the world. And Viola will ship also chemically treated sewer water to countries that believe they're running out of water. All of our traditional economic systems are slowly being eroded by this, what they say is a great reset. We are being trounced upon. And we are told, if you aren't already drinking recycled sewer and wastewater, you soon will be. It's a no-brainer. It's what's going to happen. This is what Veolia, V-E-O-L-I-A, is saying. This is a massive, massive privatization of using our own waste. And they say you just simply must get past the yuck factor. And again, I remind you, we are not running out of water. Do not fall into further brain and neurological degradation by falling for drinking and using this on your plants and your vegetables. And I will be putting this story out soon, so prepare yourselves for another blockbuster blast out about what is going to be happening with the global water supply. I also, on StopTheCrime.net, reposted a video I did back in 2014 called Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power. And please listen to that. I found documents out of Israel and out of the UK, and I went over that. Now you're going to be hearing in the news that people are stealing water from fire hydrants and from other areas where they can. And now, in order to prevent that, they're taking out fire hydrants right at the time when we've got serious fires happening. So they're creating this chaos around water theft when we are the water planet and we're not running out. We just haven't accessed it. And I will tell you, I know a city in particular that in the mid-70s located primary water. They have a couple of water wells that are producing thousands of gallons per minute that they have not told anyone about, because your water districts know. They have provided for themselves down the road when this happens. And in the meantime, oftentimes that water is being sold to other desperate cities so that they can make black market money on renewable water because they found it and they're not telling you the truth. So perhaps in your town, your water agency, who is behind all of this false information of running out of water, has accessed primary water as well. You don't know, but I do. I do know. So now I'm going to get into, I'm looking at what I want to say and what is probably the most imperative thing. I'm going to go into this. You will note, as I have noted, in disaster zones, they're telling you to know your zone, know what zone you're in on an evacuation map. So I was recently attending a meeting that was a meeting for ranchers and farmers about fire resiliency. And I saw this huge map of Sonoma County laid out on a table with all of the zones. And I looked at the map, and it was hard to read, even the size that it was. It was hard to identify the specific zones. So I left that meeting after taking many notes, of which I will be developing into an enhanced story. But I'm going to tell you about this part of the story. And again, you can type in Know Your Zone evacuation maps in your search. I've been typing in. I'm noticing that these maps are nationwide. And I started to then look in to who's behind these maps. So I'm going to go over this now. This is just new information. So I haven't heard it from anyone else, and you are hearing it right now. So I found that there's a global mapping evacuation corporation called Know Your Zone after an attack of weather. So these are weather attacks, and they're coming up with these evacuation zones, and they're presumably helping you with evacuation after they've attacked you. And why do I say they? Because these maps were orchestrated by the military and by digital corporations. I will go over that. They are providing maps in your cities, and in our cities, in most cities. These are war maps. Why do I say war maps? Well, think about what we know is the inevitable here in this country. William Cooper in Behold a Pale Horse spoke about it. Certainly the YouTube video report from Iron Mountain showed door-to-door extraction of people. We know that that has been the intent all along, is to go door-to-door. So now what I want you to think about is when you see a police raid in a house, they go in and they go through the rooms and they say clear. They go into the next room, clear. Well, these are these war maps. These are small zones. The zones are intensified by their tighter zones, smaller zones in the population zones, in the areas of higher population. As I look on my map on the zones that abut the Pacific Ocean, those zones are huge. This map is color-coded. And the zones where the cities are, Santa Rosa, San Francisco, the zones are very small. So what they want us to do now is put evacuation tags out on our mailboxes or gates so that when we're told to evacuate, they won't have to knock on the door. They will know that you've left your property. Well, what we know happened here in 2017 in the Tubbs fire that burned about 5,000 homes in a couple of days, jumped the freeway. It was horrific, and I have many family members that lost homes and friends. But what we know is that the Sheriff's Department said and told us they were dealing with truckloads of looters that were being bussed in. Now remember, this was a planned weaponized fire attack by the use of many types of weapons, boots on the ground, drones, certainly directed energy weapons, etc. And then they send in the looters. There's a book called Point Patrol that was written soon after that 2017 fire, where this cul-de-sac of homes, they stayed, they would not leave. And they were having to fend off the looters with rakes and shovels. And their main objective was to string out hoses and keep the embers from burning down their community, their little cul-de-sac area. And they witnessed the looters as well. So they want us to evacuate. They want to know when your homes are empty. And then they're going to require permits to re-enter our properties. And I was stunned to hear that. It sounds reasonable when you think about it without realizing that this is a war map and we are an occupied corporation being run by military operations set to kill us. So if you don't look at reality as reality is, you will look at this as being, oh, it's a good idea, reentry permits. Well, if you are permitted, the only way you can get permitted for early reentry after an area has been considered an evacuation zone is if you are a supplier or if you are in commerce, if you're selling animal products or food or dairy or eggs, this kind of thing in the rural areas here in Northern California. You have to show you are permitted and you are paying fees as being a seller of some sort. Otherwise, you're not able to have an early reentry permit. All other people, residents, etc., will not allow to reenter until the evacuation order has been dropped. In prior situations, that can be up to 2 weeks. Now, with the type of heat-driven intentional fires that are being set all over, it could be much longer before we're allowed back into our homes. And I can say to you that the evacuation centers are a concern because the requirements of the health emergency and the health orders could also require that you're not able to have a reentry ability unless you've met all of your local health requirements, and you know what I mean by that. So as I was looking at who's mapping, and I looked at your zone, I found out that Genesis is one of the mapping companies. It actually was renamed because it obviously didn't want to be associated with whom they are really with. But they get funds from the U.S. Army, and they receive certifications from the emergency management software companies and the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. They are hooked in to government and wireless intel and wars. I discovered after reading some of their management members, their board members, the backgrounds, that many were attached with the LRAD Corporation, which is Integrated Defense Systems, and certainly the use of remote weapons systems as well. And many of them worked previously for Raytheon against defense contractors, military contractors. This is wargaming. They have set this country up now in zones. So I will go further into what Genesis Inc. is, because they acquired the emergency evacuation provider, which was called Zone Haven, Z-O-N-E, Haven, H-A-V-E-N. They acquired Zone Haven. And they talk about how it's a transformative evacuation planning program and emergency management system. This is a war system. These are war maps. You need and must look at this. We are under siege. Your local elected, presumably elected officials know, and you are being led into being captured and relocated, and I will get into that in a moment as well. We figured out what they are doing with planned relocations of all of us that survive, that aren't killed in the interim. So let's go in to this Genesis. This is an article out of San Diego, California, June 9th of 2021. And it's a global leader in critical communication systems and solutions. And they announced that they had acquired Zone Haven, a fast-growing provider of software as a service solutions for emergency evacuations. Now, I must again reiterate, the emergency evacuations are weather-related targeting events to harm, injure, kill, and wipe out our communities. Now they're offering assistance in helping us to safely evacuate the very war-torn areas that they are attacking. So they go on to say that they provide planning and training and resources for first responders and health agencies and communities to manage the evacuations. So based in San Francisco, California, Zone Haven's services were trusted by more than 170 fire districts. Now, these guys don't know this is a military operation. You can tell them this is a military operation because it is. They say, quote, with increasing wildfire, flooding, severe weather, active shooters, hazmat, and other crisis events require proven solutions to help quickly move people away from danger. And again, I remind you, the danger they create. The Chief Executive Office of Genesis Inc., G-E-N-A-S-Y-S Inc., we have recently seen in California and other areas of the world that critical events require preparation. Of course they do. They are causing this. Now, they say that they service more than 100 countries in a range of diverse applications, not only including emergency warning systems and mass communications. But let's go on into this. Genesis Inc. Was a long-range acoustic device. That's what the LRAD is, L-R-A-D, long-range acoustic device. This is what Genesis is involved in, headquartered in San Diego, California. They have developed long-range acoustic hailing systems. The company has many employees, and they've reported huge amounts of revenue in 2019. Their flagship product is the Sonic Weapon Long-Range Acoustic Device, the LRAD. It has been used by the Israeli military against the Palestinian civilians in the occupied Palestinian territory, commonly known in the Israel military as the Scream. The LRAD blasts its target with an extremely high volume and focused sound, as it has been used in multiple times by the Israeli military in the occupied West Bank to attack Palestinian protesters, according to WHO Prophets. In 2011, the Israeli Ministry of Defense ordered 293,000 worth of LRAD systems. Different models of the LRAD system have also been used by the U.S. military, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, the Migration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, Customs and Border Protection. Additionally, multiple police departments across the U.S. use LRADs as a crowd control weapon against protesters, as first documented in Pittsburgh during the 2009 G20 summit. LRADs were later deployed by U.S. police departments, for example, in the New York and Oakland during the Occupy movement, in Standing Rock during the 2016 Dakota Access Pipeline protests, in Washington, D.C. during the 2017 Women's March, and in Black Lives Matter protests in New York, Ferguson, and Portland, following the police killings of Eric Garner, Michael Brown, George Floyd, respectively. So I want to talk about the history, because this is a corporation of death. They're using weapons on us. We are the enemy. So understand, these are war maps that have been developed by the military to conduct wargaming, killing strategies on all of us. I hear a break coming on, and I will resume upon the back end of this break, because I will start talking about something else no one else has talked about either. Deborah Tavares with StopTheCrime.net. Back in a moment. We're going to do a 5-minute recap to bring it forward to what you're going to hear me disclose next. So we have previously spoken about water as a renewable. We're not running out, even though we're being psyopsed to water being a finite resource. It is not. Please go to primarywater.org. Look up what they did to Muammar Gaddafi and the Great Man-Made River Project. They did not want any of you to know that water is a renewable. We are indeed the water planet. Water comes from down below the mantle. It does not come from rain and snowmelt. Rain and snowmelt is the evaporation of primary water that is continuously made. Pure, fresh, clean water, if you can get to it before it is poisoned by all the poisons and toxins being delivered into our environment. We also talked about Veolia, V-E-O-L-I-A, as being one of the leaders in deploying and building wastewater treatment plants throughout many countries worldwide. Their goal and their mission statement wraps around being committed to sustainable development, which is, of course, similar to what the World Health Forum's commitment is as well. They both pare down into, you will own nothing, and you will be happy, and you, my adding, and you will likely be dead. So Veolia is part of this takedown, the Great Reset. It's not just the Great Reset. It is a takedown by corporate structures that have created tentacles into every traditional delivery system we have. That's why we're going to have massive power outages. But I want to go on into something else. I will develop this. Well, I actually won't go into this right now. But I do want you to understand that That viola is also part of the worldwide reset based upon Sustainable Development Goals, which is the reduction of all access to all life-supporting requirements, water, energy, petroleum, which they call fossil fuels. But we must realize what will likely not be shipped to us anymore. Shipping and distribution will now be also the shipping and distribution of sewer water, which will be shipped to countries that are believing that they have run out of water. No longer will real food or real meat be shipped anymore, only alternative sources of protein to reduce meat consumption, and supplying GMO food to all only. This is Sustainable Development Goals. This is what you will be shipped only. You will not have choices. Your choices are gone. They're fast being eliminated. And if you believe you have a choice, you're going to end up in confinement. That is the New World Order. Only sourcing 100% renewables. Think about that. They'll only be sourcing 100% renewables and reducing or eliminating the use of material that cannot be recycled or easily reused. Shipping only electric vehicles to stop the use of all petroleum-based products, and more. So just to wrap up, to sort of illuminate what you face, where you live, and eliminating all your wireless devices in your homes is an immediate consideration if you wish to survive. Again, I suggest you listen to the videos that I have up on stopthecrime.net, on our Odyssey video file, and go to primarywater.org to learn the water facts. I also recommended that everybody order or look at getting the book, The Story of the Committee of 300 by Dr. John Coleman. Now we're going to get into what you heard me talk about in Dr. John Coleman's book when I read you those couple of paragraphs about people being relocated and only a few being allowed to access water, electricity, etc. Because what we know is this country has been set up, the grid has been set up to fail. This is all by design. We will have increasing mass power outages. And unless you have prepared yourself to sustain yourself with no power, then you will be forced into the zones that I'm going to talk about in a moment. These are different zones than the zones I just spoke about with the evacuation zones. But let me get into the power. Something that I highly recommend all of you do immediately is to turn off all of your lights. Put tape over it so you don't inadvertently flip a switch when you're accustomed to trying to see something. And also, do not turn on any water. You can't flush your toilets. You don't have any heat. Your hot water heater won't work because usually they are electric ignitions. But even if they aren't, don't turn on water and don't use electricity for 3 or 4 days. Find out what you need to survive in those conditions, because you will need all of those things in 3 or 4 days that you realize you need to have. So I would encourage you all to prepare yourselves for massive extended power outages. We have already been having power outages due to the weaponized attacks of the various types of weather events we have been experiencing. And power outages are happening worldwide. Areas in Africa and Brazil and Argentina, etc., are having widespread outages intentionally done by the United States. So we are flipping the switch on people to bring them into the Great Reset, to destroy lives, destroy businesses, and destroy people's emotional ability to cope as they are being sieged, under siege, while being told on the media all is sort of okay, not describing the real attacks that are occurring. And that disconnect is psychologically disabling. And I would encourage all of you to listen to alternative media sources that you can trust. Many, sadly, I say you cannot. But understand you are not alone. So now let's get into these microgrid future that we're going to be forced into. Now, these are survival zones, and only a few people will be able to access these zones. I have been in attendance prior to the COVID shutdown, a meeting called Sonoma Clean Power. And during the course of these meetings that I attended, I literally left, I must tell you, I literally left a number of these meetings somewhat traumatized because of the combination of mayors and other city officials that were at these meetings, attending these meetings. I was the only non-agency person sitting in the pew and listening to their discussions. And they were openly talking about how grids will be set up, and there was a representative from a nearby county who wanted to participate in the grid so his county would have access to the geothermal operation. Here in Santa Rosa, we have the Department of Defense has a huge geothermal plant, and they create energy there, but they also create toxic acid mist as well. It's a poisonous mountain. They frack it with wastewater treatment with piping going 40 miles up the mountain, and then they frack it to make electricity. Well, the abutting county behind that mountain ridge wanted to access the electricity too. And the controllers, which that originally was first set up by PG&E, which is Rothschild, the Mayacamas Mountains geothermal operation. And the county on the other side of the mountain asked if they could also utilize some of that electricity. And they were told, sorry, you're not in the club. You're not in the club. So Clear Lake and the county on the far side of that ridge is not in the club. They will be offered no electricity. Now we discovered the unthinkable, and I'm going to do my best to articulate this to you now because it is very tough. I will say this. At this moment, we are not finding any other state, however, but California right now that is preparing these small survival microgrids. We're not seeing this happening elsewhere. I need your help to see if your state is preparing small survivable areas where people can congregate when the power is turned off for extenuated periods of time. But I can tell you the grids that are being created here in California, Northern California particularly, are only going to service maybe 20 homes and maybe just and only commercial operations. So let's get into this. They talk about how there will be multiple customer microgrids. They will be rare and difficult in the future. In other words, these multiple customer microgrids will be rare. The microgrid is an area that is capable of supplying electricity and water. In other words, they're off-grid. They are not connected when they don't need to be to the Rothschild stranglehold of the wireless smart meters and so forth that can turn your power off, and or if you have a solar system with battery backup, you know that during an emergency they can drain your saved up electricity to service the community. If you didn't know that, now you do. They have smart meters, and they will take your power from you. You won't have any power. So they go, when the switch is flipped on the North Coast Airport, and they're talking a lot about keeping airports up and functioning, which would, of course, be the military requirement for landing aircraft, etc. and they say it will become the first multi-customer microgrid in Northern California, and one of the only of a handful of active microgrids in the United States. So let me get further into this, because I have done prior videos on microgrids. You need to know what that is. You're not likely going to be in a grid of sustainability, of life support. That's what these grids will do. And when I saw this attached to the front of my local paper, I understood why Congress has passed a 26% tax credit for home solar and battery backup in 2021. They're going to steal the power and the monies that you spend in thinking that you are providing yourself safety, because most likely you are going to install a Tesla power or firewall, as I call it, but a system that requires a smart meter and is attached to the grid. I have many people thinking that they will be safe in a scenario of a shutdown. They have actually and will actually be giving energy to a system that needs energy to kill us. Energy, vast amounts of energy is required. Why do you think that they're setting up the requirement in all new home construction in the state of California as of 2020 has to be retrofitted for solar? Why? Because they're going to steal it, and they're going to utilize this resource that they steal if the properties are not burned down, and they will selectively choose areas that can add to the electricity likely and not target them with fire events. It wouldn't make sense that they would burn down the additional electricity that they need and that Congress is giving a 26% tax credit for. So let's get into more of how microgrids will change how electricity is made and delivered to all of us in the future. You can actually kiss the method of delivery of electricity goodbye now, just like you can your gas. So what they say is there's a shift towards localized production of electricity, which will change the power delivery system. The emergence of electric vehicles will only add to the grid's evolution. There is going to be a drastically changed everything that we do in terms of both supply and delivery of energy and the use of it. We can foresee that there will be much more highly localized production and delivery coming down, not just in the microgrid, but down in the nano level. They talk about how digitization and software will control local generation and loads of electricity, provided an overarching optimal view to maximize the value of all distributed energy resources. We've got to save people money to do a sustainability targeting. Whenever you hear that word targeting or deployment, this is what is being done to all of us. Those words are not to miss. When they say target and deployment, we are the enemy. We're being targeted, we're being deployed upon with systems that are deadly to us, all the wireless frequencies, etc. Now, you're not in the club. You're not going to get into a microgrid, which is sustainable offline. The military has already set this up. You would imagine that, of course, they would. They have. I've reported on that in the past number of years because I have looked at military documents. They talk about a black start when all of a sudden the lights don't go on. And all of a sudden, your lights may not soon go on. So prepare all you can. I will continue. I've got a few minutes left. They say hydro, for example, may become more widely available in the next couple of decades, but could be used to replace natural gas generation. Hydrogen. And they're going to split the gases, because remember, water's made from hydrogen and oxygen. In fact, actually, I'll bring this in now. I have discussed it on many videos. Again, go back and listen to my videos on stopthecrime.net. But when I was at a conference in London in 2019, I went over the 1969 CIA memorandum, where they talk about reducing the oxygen supply. And now you can see that happening as well. I want to say this. They talk about the engineering of these grids, and I'm going to do an in-depth coverage of this. They're going to be selecting specific restaurants in your area. In our area, they're selecting Chick-fil-A to install the first test microgrid ahead of possible national rollout and blackouts. And they say restaurants in San Diego, Santa Rosa, and Stockton will beta test the sole microgrid system designed for 5,000 square foot buildings, according to the company, which is backed by Morgan Stanley Energy Partners. This is Rothschild. Now, what they say, the reason to have some of these restaurants be within a microgrid is it will provide continuous power during local utility outages using a mix of solar, off-site natural gas generators, and on-site energy storage controlled by artificial intelligence, a dashboard. The gas generation will only be used during power outages, according to Chick-fil-A. The solution will allow us to provide a place where guests, you're going to be a guest, in the community can convene, enjoy a meal, and plug in when your power may not be available to your homes. And this is April Farage, a Chick-fil-A operator in Stockton, California, quoted that. So again, with the planned power outages, and they're going to be problematic, they're going to happen more frequently, you're going to be without power. You have to understand what you must do. Please have a power outage party. Make it fun, but it is a deadly consequence when you have no water because you don't and cannot use water and you cannot turn your lights on. The final play on this will be your local public health office will come in and say, you don't have power. Your property is not safe. It's unhealthy for you to stay there. We need to relocate you to your local Chick-fil-A. Or, as a matter of fact, they're now condemning older hotels to relocate populations and homeless people. You will be relocated into turnkey operations of abandoned buildings. This is what is happening, folks. This is real. This is what is on your doorstep. Besides directed energy weapons, besides the jabs, besides nanosmart dust, besides altering our human existence, our human DNA, they're altering your lives right now. And understand the types of things you can and must do to harden up to be harder to kill. So I am going to be talking more extensively about some of the things that you heard me discuss during this broadcast. No one else is. No one else is talking about this. Why? Why isn't this being broadcasted in alternative news media? It's not. No one is talking about water, the reality of water, but stopthecrime.net and primarywater.org and Paul Power and the many people, the few people that understand the facts about primary water. This should be being broadcasted on every radio show that is in alternative media, and it is not. You're going to be massively relocated because you are going to be deemed an area that has run out of water. In the first hour of this show, I spoke about the town of Mendocino in Northern California. They're now having water trucked in because their wells are pumped dry. Their wells are pumped dry because the well drillers don't know what they're doing. They're trained how not to access primary water, sadly. They don't drill into the required areas where they will hit a fracture and get to water. You need 2 people out on drilling digs. You need a primary water expert to locate where the water is, and then you need that expert to tell the well driller how deep to drill. Well drillers are opposed to wanting to damage their drill bits because oftentimes they have to go into some rock. And I can tell you this, the well drilling rigs are having difficulty now getting repair parts because of the supply line problems. We are finding that some of the well drillers are booked out a year. Well, between now and a year, now being July the 27th, between now of 2021, between now and a year, there will be no more abilities to pull permits for well drilling. There are already moratoriums. They've gone the moratorium route. Here they will say they just won't permit new housing construction. We're going to have a fall-off of new housing construction worldwide and particularly nationwide, where people will be forced into these turnkey standing buildings. This is your forward. This is not a stack and pack new condo project, folks. This is being forced into relocating into areas and being spread around the state or the country where there is turnkey inventory and where they will force people to relocate, whether it's through social distancing, whether it's through forced isolation, all the things that we see occurring now. And I can say, all of you know, we're heading into another lockdown. So it has been said, and I can't state this myself, but I will pass this along. It's most important that you have food and water by September. So it's very, very important to have what you need, because those that don't participate in the agreement of this socially engineered death camp that we're in will not be allowed to participate in food opportunities or water. Again, Deborah Tavares with StopTheCrime.net. Please listen to this. We'll have this today's show up on our site in a day or so. Thank you for listening, everybody. Please be safe and stay alive. Please stay alive.